1 of number 700, 700, to the work. 700, verse 1. I didn't think it was a funny song. Do me. To the work, we are servants of God. Let us follow the path that our Master has trod. With the balm of his counsel, our strength to renew. Let us do with our might what our Savior do. Toiling on, toiling on, toiling on, toiling on. Let us hope, let us watch, and labor till the Master comes. Good thing we're only doing one verse.
Sticking around, really appreciate it, and we'll try to move through the slides as quickly as possible. The slides are about our work in the Philippines, and our focus is upon those that we support over there. It's a report on, kind of understanding, I suppose, a little bit more about the Philippines culturally, but that's not what we're really emphasizing. What we're really emphasizing is the fact that we're doing our best to try to preach the gospel somewhere and help others preach the gospel. This is a slide of Manila. It's just like any other big city. That's where we start. We fly into the airport, and then we work our way over to a place to stay for a day or two in Manila, and then we move out. This is a little shot of the, what did you call it, Carrie? The infrastructure?
Infrastructure.
To show how, yeah.
Lack of infrastructure.
Yeah. And I almost wish he would have. Did you put the other one with the online stuff? Is that later on?
That's coming up.
Okay, because there's even a better one that just makes you wonder how they do any of these things. Anyway, this is of course our favorite food when we get to the Philippines: mangoes, and I think that's one of our knives, isn't it, Judy? Yeah. So somehow. You bring it with you? In her suitcase, yeah. Let's not go down that road. That's always a very interesting part of our trip. Okay, so anyway, I know they try to grow mangoes in Mexico and even in South America, but there's nothing like these mangoes right here. These, in our opinion, they're sweet, they're wonderful, and it's not the only reason we go to the Philippines, but it's a kicker, I'll tell you that. Okay, here's the jeepney, which they are trying to phase those out over there because they're very, very old, and of course they're going through the same sort of things that we are in terms of trying to be more green, if you will. But they still are very, very attractive. You have to improve yours if you're going to be able to keep it. This is Judy and I were lost, and there's ways to go under main streets, and so you can get to the other side. You just can't jump on the sidewalk and just walk across. In most places you can, but in certain places in Manila you can't. And so there's that picture of what's on the ceiling, and I have to tell you that I never saw it. We were lost at the time, and I'm probably looking at Judy like, well, now where do we go? And I didn't even notice the artwork there. So, okay, all right. The first place we go to is Margo Satubig, and if you look at the star there, that's there in a region it's called Zamboanga, and we've been going there for a while, and we support two guys in that particular community in Pagadian is where we landed, and then Margo Satubig. Ignacio Diego and Ernesto Canyon. His wife died not too long ago. He's remarried, and we had never met her before. And it was just kind of one of those interesting things. We said, well, how'd you get a new wife, Ernesto? And he goes, oh, my daughters arranged it. I have no doubt they probably did. But he's a great guy, still a wonderful teacher. He's getting close to 80, but he's just one of those guys who really takes care of himself. Ignacio's a very great teacher in many, many respects, and he is one of the guys that does the teaching in and around that area. Now, when we come to their house, I don't know if you can tell there, this is our room where Judy and I normally stay. I think Carrie may have stayed in there a time or two. But Carrie's not with us right now in the trip. Carrie didn't come along till 2 weeks later. Scott Willie, a son of Larry, was with us. But anyway, that's our bed, and I think it's quilts that are our wallpaper. But anyway, we had a couple of mosquitoes. And of course, their reaction to us first was, what do you mean, mosquitoes? They didn't know they had mosquitoes, because they don't bother them, and they just don't pay much attention. So we said, well, maybe you have a net or something like that. And so here we go. They popped this up, and so it didn't look like it was going to be real easy to sleep under it, but it wasn't that bad once you got there. It was just, when you had to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, it got a little complicated. We're on the island of Mindanao. Zamboanga is the region in the northern part of Mindanao. Okay, they have a nice building there. You can see over. Scott was here last week when we had Robert come to Robert Sullivan, and so he was here. So some of you would have met him, and he's there to visit the guy sitting next to him. I can't remember his last name. His first name is Olimpio, but they support him. The Clovis Church supports him, and so we're there. I think that we're meeting with them on Sunday, and then what's going to happen is we are going to have a meeting with mostly preachers from the area who come to be a part of what we're doing there. We're only staying there a couple of days. We stayed there 5 weeks this time, and it was a lot of let's go, let's get there, let's stop, wait, it's been a day and a half. We got to get on another plane. So we kind of created that for ourselves. We learned our lesson. Probably not the best way to do it, but there is our friend there, Ignacio, and it's kind of interesting. I'm just fixed on the microphone because we've told you this before. I don't care how big the building is. I mean, if we go in here and decide we're going to have a class in the prep room, I mean, somebody would have a microphone. I mean, they just think you can't do anything without a microphone. And in some ways it's true because there's so much noise that's usually going on around you that you almost need it, but sometimes they overdo it a little bit. This is a road. They're having some sort of a fiesta, and it was just about like anything else you'd expect to see with people trying to sell things along the road. There were these people that I think Judy took this photo, and they were cleaning up. I don't know if anybody was paying to clean up. Somebody was. She's shaking her head. And so, they're not ones to ignore someone who wants to take a photo of them. And so they seem to be quite happy to do it. And you'll see what he's got in his right hand. That's a broom. And the girl in the front is, okay, she's got, that's, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, I see that now. Here I thought I was looking up at her face and the mask looked like a beard. And, well, I mean, doesn't it kind of look like a beard? I never noticed any of this, going on. So, between Carrie and Judy taking photos, I'm a lot of times just out in the cold. All right, now we spent a couple days there. Scott goes up to be with Olimpio, and he's up in the mountains, and it was hot. And Scott is a big guy. Those of you who know him, And, well, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing all right. So anyway, he goes up in the hills to preach for this church. And anyway, what happened was he got about 5 minutes into his lesson, and he was pretty much done. He had to go lie down for about 15 minutes in order to redeem himself with the heat problem and things like that. Because again, he's a big guy, and so the heat was a little bit overwhelming. I mean, I think this is one of the things about Judy and I going, and Carrie going as well, is you don't notice the heat that much after you've been there a lot of times. I mean, you're just kind of used to it, and so Scott was getting used to it. So anyway, we've been there for a couple of days, and then we had to go to the island where the arrow points on the bottom right, and we had to take an interesting route. The only way we could get back to the island of Leyte, which is where that arrow is, that's Tacloban, which is where the airport is, was to fly back to Manila and then back down to Tacloban. So I guess it would be, just like going to Denver and then flying on to Chicago or something like that. Just something like that. But anyway, we could have probably got a ferry, but that would have been more taxing in ways. The ferry, overnight ferry, is you're not really that rested, even though you have places to sleep when you get there. So anyway, we went and we landed there, and then we went to 3 or 4 different places in Leyte, the island there. Now, this is a place, I called it Shangri-La, and the reason why was you can see it's raining. The whole time we were on Leyte for 3 days. It rained almost nonstop the whole time we were there, and we haven't been getting a lot of rain over there. But anyway, I think that's me with the umbrella, and you see over on your left, that's a Philippine eagle that had been injured, and somebody found it up there, and so they've been nursing it back to health. It's in the house right next to the church building, which. Okay, so you see, the reason I call it Shangri-La, how in Shangri-La, the movie, Lost Horizon, where you climb all the way to the top, to get to this beautiful place. And, of course, there's a lot of snow in that movie, but no snow here. But we had to climb up this hill, and it was slippery, and I was really, really thinking, Scott, you better not fall, because then nobody's going to be able to pick you up. Well, he made it, and it was very slippery. And anyway, there was a set of 3 or 4 different sets of stairs, so we had to walk maybe a couple hundred feet up the side of this hill to get to this building. And of course, there is the close-up of the Philippine eagle. It's an endangered animal. Okay. All right. So this is the meeting place. A lot of times when you come there, especially when this group had not really had very many people there before, and so they'll kind of decorate it a little bit. And it's a little overdone, I think, but nevertheless, that's kind of what they do. There's Scott over there, and he's I think looks like he's cleaning his glasses. But there were probably about 35 to 40 people there, tops, and they were just thrilled that we had come. We had driven probably an hour and a half or 2 just to get there. Most of it was through the rain and through muddy road and stuff like that. But we got there, and we each made a talk. And before we left, they provided us a little bit of a snack, and then it was on to the next place. This is all in Leyte. I mean, I don't expect you guys to follow all this, but just try to do your best. We went to a place that I'd never been before, and there's Scott. He's up there preaching, and one of the members got up and said, well, we're so happy to have Brother Randy Hilburn with us. It's because of him that we have these chairs. And I thought, well, the memory's going, but I didn't know anything about it. But what happened was someone who's since passed away, but helped in the work over there when he was in Pagadian a couple of years ago. He said that there's a congregation there that really needs chairs. And so, we kind of evaluated, the need, and we ended up going ahead and giving them enough money to buy, the magic chair of the Philippines, those plastic chairs. I mean, without them, the world would not exist properly. But anyway, so it's a nice little building there, but all the chairs in there, from our congregation, we provided them for it. And so I told them, well, I'm really glad that, that we had something to do with that, but we haven't been sitting around taking a whole lot of credit for it. But anyway, as you can see the blackboard, which is typical in most groups. And as I said, it's a fairly nice building. Here I am. I'm not sure. I must be really making a point there. Or hitching a ride. I thought of that, But anyway, there's a guy that's translating, and we didn't talk for very long. I think when you're translating, generally speaking, a 15-minute lesson usually turns into about 30 minutes when you're translating. So we usually give them not a whole lot of material to work with. But just to show you that when they lead singing over in the Philippines, they lead it pretty much the same way as we do here, Except, of course, the guy's holding the book, which we don't do that anymore. We've moved beyond that. It's just only people in the seats who use the book. But anyway, I mentioned to you before there are a lot of really, really good song leaders, and will sing songs in a very different way, tempo-wise, than we do from time to time. And so that kind of keeps you on your toes. Let's see. All right, as we're leaving Leyte, we've been here before. This is where General MacArthur said, we will return. Isn't that what he said there? Yeah. And so this is his returning. They have a monument there, and it's a pool, and it has 4 or 5 different. That's General MacArthur. Actually, they did a really good job of portraying him in this. But it's at that area is where he left and then where he returned. If I'm wrong on that, then you'll have to check it out with somebody else. Now, this is as we're driving around. This is a kind of a nice road here. It's got a bridge and everything, and we're traveling in a van, and we're going to working our way back to the area where we're going to fly. So we're just there for a couple of days, again, interacting with these guys that we support. And most of you have seen the pictures of them on the back if you go and look at those letters that they write. So you can see we're way up there now in the right-hand corner of Luzon. And, you can see where we were before, down in the island of Mindanao. And so we flew to Manila, and then we worked our way back up toward Luzon, where most of the people we support are in Luzon. Ilagan is the place where those particular guys are located, in that general area. Mar Bilguera, we remember years ago we had Mar come and preach, and he preached for us. Edgar Lucadini and Eric Barrillo, they preach in that area, both very competent guys, along with Mar. Mar is doing great. He is about, isn't he about our age, Judy? Okay, he's Judy's age. Yeah, I'm too young, as Judy said, so but he's doing great. I mean, he's really working hard for the Lord and doing wonderful things. So we arrived there on a Saturday, and we had lunch in Kawayan. I'm not sure that's spelled correctly, but anyway. Didn't we try to work on that, Carrie?
Yeah, we both guessed at it.
Yeah.
That's the best we could do.
Yeah. Anyway, we stayed in a hotel in Ilagan, which it was one where it was just the dumpiest place, and then now they rebuilt it, and it was pretty nice. I mean, it was still nothing fancy by any stretch, but that's the city hall of Ilagan. We worshiped there on Sunday in the morning, at least we did. Again, Carrie's not with us just yet. And then in the afternoon, we go to where Edgar is. Scott went up to an area off to the northwest, and to be with a couple preachers that are supported by Clovis. And then on Monday, all day, we had an all-day lectureship, and we had a lot of people attending that. And Scott now then gets on a plane and returns to Manila because he's ready to go home. You know, Scott has his own business. He's a very busy guy. But his daughter was having a baby, and he was doing the best he could to get back. And, you know, he did make it back, but it wasn't nearly as melodramatic. I think she waited 3 days by the time he got there. So, you know, he was hoping he would just kind of go off the plane and just get to the hospital just in time or something like that. He did a really good job. He's a really good teacher, and very likable. He was very coy about the whole thing when he first got there, and by the time he was going home, it was like, oh wow, really looking forward to coming back. I mean, he's telling all the Filipinos this, and I'm going to try to bring my whole family next time. That isn't going to happen, but nevertheless, I mean, that's how he was feeling about it. I mean, he was just really, really excited about doing it, and he took 2 weeks off from his business, and it was kind of awkward for him because he was supposed to come with Scott Young, and Scott Young was going to kind of lead him around and showing him the way, and then Scott assured him that I probably wouldn't mess it up too much, and so he went ahead and came with us, and he was just, we were really, really glad he was there. I mentioned, that even if he couldn't teach, I was glad we were going to have him. The guy's 6'5", and he weighs about 320 pounds. I thought we're in good shape, even if he can't do anything. But he did. He did a really good job teaching. There we are with Mar and his wife, Lydia, Mar, and of course you should recognize us. And then, as is always the case, whenever you eat, it's always a full table full of whatever they have. It's all Filipino food, and it's very basic. This is what they do in Ilagan in their spare time. They paint all the rocks, and it's right there in the central area. So it's a pretty, I suppose, well-to-do kind of community in many ways. Right there, see now, that shows you what some of the business people are. Underneath that is one of those things called the tricycle. You see the tire right there, way down there? And he's traveling around and selling his wares. And I had never seen this before, and I don't think either one of you guys had ever seen this. No. I mean, we should have. The picture was probably taken as we were driving by. That's when a lot of the photos are taken. It would have been nice to get out and see if there really was a hole there, where you could actually see. But we had never seen anything like this. You talk about a traveling salesman. Okay, so we taught there, which is our normal routine, to try to teach some of the members, but emphasize the teaching of the preachers in the area who come to listen and share some of their ideas, and we try to teach them as well. And so we weren't there for very long. Now, it's at this point where Carrie shows up. Carrie, I think it was February 23. Does that sound about right? Or March? No.
I'm sure it was 2023, but beyond that.
What? February 22nd.
22nd.
He's such a good guy to have traveling with you, Very alert to all that's going on. Okay, so he met us. He flew into Tuguegarao, and so there we started the last part of our trip with Carrie. So the first couple of weeks was with Scott, and then the last 3 weeks was with Carrie, and Carrie was going to be in the place where most of our people are. And so, again, that's why we're there, to try to find out what their needs are, and if there's any health issues, then we find out about those, and we try to help them the best that we can. These are the guys who preach in that area. Most of these guys we've been working with for quite a long time. I've mentioned this already, but Nao, is the one who has Parkinson's disease, and that's about the best he can do, on his face. He just can't smile. He had some sort of an attack where he ended up in the hospital. I think the pain was really, really bad from his waist down or something like that. But he's not really able to preach anymore, and we're going to continue to help him for a while as things settle down. He keeps telling us, if you don't want to help me, that's fine. I'll be perfectly okay because I'm not regularly able to preach. And he is in a pretty good situation. He's moved in with, he and his wife have moved in with his sister, and so they take care of him quite well. But you can see him. I mean, there's different manifestations of Parkinson's, but he's just very tense all the time. And but again, when we first went there, one of the smiliest guys you'd ever meet. Yeah. Do you remember the joke he used to tell you, Judy, about his size or something like that? Oh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Judy would make these little washcloths. Maybe some of you have received these. She'd knit them up and things like that. And then what he would see is her doing this. He says, "Oh, so nice of you, Sister Judy, to make me a blanket." Yeah. So that's the kind of guy he was. He was an accountant and taught at a college of accountancy for a while. And then all the other guys are, Felipe is, we've been with him for a while. He's almost 80 years old, still very, very active. Carrie spent some time with him. You went over and preached at a couple of congregations where he has an association. Is there anything kind of worth mentioning about that, or do you?
Oh, when you get to the slide, I'll...
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry about that. I didn't realize something big was coming here. Okay, so here we are at the city of Tugigarao, and they have a big mall now. So, I mean, things are just flapping right along there. And it even had a you-know-what in it, right, Carrie? Starbucks, yeah. So we could have pretty much stayed there most of the time, and it would have been just fine. But anyway, it's a real, I don't know how they managed it, to get it up there, because it's not that forward to town, but yeah, it's quite the shopping mall. But anyway, so here we are, and we're there with people who have been our hosts a lot of times over the years. Robert and Evelyn Gamiao. We were in their home, and we had a nice meal with them, and we were going to have a class in his driveway area, I guess is the way to put it. That's what that is. It's outdoors. And it's where they park their vehicles, and you can see the fan there, and it is a place that sometimes can get kind of hot. But you can see Carrie's up there, just right behind his beard. You can see him. And I guess we could have had the light a little bit more, a little better, Carrie, so you would have stood out a little bit more. But nevertheless, here's some guys who were there coming in the daytime. We met in several churches on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, bouncing around the whole community. And this was kind of the finished crowd on the lectureship of preachers. So this was something, again, that was, that's what we do. Now, we'll go to certain places where we will have baptisms. This year we had probably more than we've ever had, but it was about 40 baptisms. And there are certain areas that want to share their baptisms with you, and there are certain ones that really, understand that it's not necessary for us to see it or experience it with them. And you've heard me talk about this before, but you'll see some pictures here. But anyway, this was there at his house. Then we go over to Dasun, where John, you can see him there. He looks like he's standing on his tiptoes, which he has to. He's only about that tall. So, yeah. But just been a great guy. He married a wonderful girl about 15 years ago, and he's still doing a wonderful work there. And that's at that building where some of you participated in helping pay for that building where John is. I know there were a few. I think you guys at the Baldwins did, and a couple other people helped with the building of that building. And so there's John, his wife, to his left, and his daughter, Gia, and I don't know who the other person is. I think she was just a friend of the family. So that's just a picture of them. And here now, Carrie is, see, what happens when we go to places, we separate, and Carrie goes one place to work with a group of people, and then I stay in another area. And so he's there where Felipe is. And do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, it's actually, they're using the house of Renato Abido, who's a preacher that Felipe is bringing along.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, we talk about the typhoons they run into in that particular area. If you look at the pictures on the wall, the bottom surface of the frame, the bottom edge of the frame, is how high the floodwaters got that came through that house.
Yeah.
So it's an annual event for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're not shocked when it happens. They just realize it's just something now we have to deal with. And it's not, that never gets any easier for them, I don't think. But they're just used to it. Again, Felipe, probably the most intelligent preacher in that area, for whatever that's worth. He's kind of at that stage, where he'd like to be a little bit more respected, by his younger preacher friends. But you know how that goes. You know how the older and the younger sometimes don't really work out all that well. And I think, this Abido fellow is the son of a guy who recently passed away, that he nurtured him along. Felipe nurtured him along, and he's just a very, very patient kind of fellow most of the time, but he gets frustrated with some of the younger guys every once in a while. But don't we all? Okay, we're at Campo. Carrie went to Campo, and that's where Marlon preaches. Anything, Carrie?
Neo's brother.
Right, okay.
Agluga.
It's Neo's younger brother, who drives a tricycle to support himself. But, as you can see, like, the evolution of this over the years is that almost everybody's got a floor in their building now, whereas when we first started, they didn't. And so they've managed, at least from a structural standpoint, to get a lot of help from us and others, although we don't generally, as a church, help in the building part of it. We want to be more in the benevolent side of it, and if they want a building, well, if we have individuals who are willing to help them, which we have had over the years, then we kind of try to point them in that direction, and they really do appreciate it. All right, now this is...
That's the service to the church building where Marlon is. And,
okay. And make sure you try to explain it to them so they actually can imagine what's there.
They don't spend a lot of money bringing their service into their electrical service. On the left, that's a bamboo pole. Grab it. We'll put the electrical on it, and that'll work because we can go right through the tree next to it. So you barely see the cable.
Yeah, you see how it's coming out?
But there's 240 volts going through that line in an area that they get typhoons. It just...
Yeah. But there's not a lot of people in that area, so I think it's reasonably safe. But I mean, 240 is just as powerful just about wherever you are. Yeah. This is the building of Ruffy, the preacher there. Tell a little bit about that, Kerry.
That's the most recent. When we announced that they ran into problems with their building, they lost it. What they did.
And there were some here who helped with that initial structure.
Who contributed that, and that's the building they built with the funds they got. And it's almost finished. They got a little bit of the roof to do, and they got to pour a floor in it, but it's coming along. They made made big progress. It really surprised me how far along they were when I got there.
Yeah, and that's a real Cadillac compared to what they had. I mean, it was, as I've told Carrie, I used to call it the manger. I mean, it's what it looked like. It looked like it'd be more fitful for a couple of cows and some hay. So, but they had problems where they were building on somebody else's property and they didn't really know it, and I mean, it was just a mess. Okay, then I'm in Uraga, which is where Bong Respizio is the preacher there, and this is we're not sure who took the photo on the left. Neither Carrie. Oh, Judy took credit for it. Okay, so can you tell them what you see there on the left? You see the cat and the dog? Isn't that sweet? So, where was that? I mean, in Uraga? Oh, okay, I got you. Okay. And then there's this other dog there that's just kind of checking it out, but everybody looks happy. This is the place, Iguig, where Ireneo Ballad is the preacher, and that's the membership there, and we've been able to help. One of the guys had a serious, well, he was in an accident, and I think he lost part of his leg, and then he had started having bad troubles with his eyes, and so we helped him with the surgery that was required for him. And we've talked about this before. You know, they can get a lot of surgery over there for about $300, and it really, it's one of those things that's very easy for us to help if we find out about it. And so every time we get our hands on that, we really do try to help people out, you know, because we feel our main goal is to make sure that they're getting taught the things that, you know, we believe that really is appropriate, and then trying to help them with their needs as much as possible. This is in a very, very poor area where this is. I mean, you don't really, that's the next place in Iguig. And I mean, it was just like walking through a farm area. Was pretty much what it was like. Okay, so and there's just nothing but little areas where the animals can be kept, and very, very impoverished area. Okay, now this is as we're traveling along, and you can see these things that they call kalesas, that is wagons that are drawn by horses. And this was, I think, one of your photos, wasn't it, Judy? Taking it out the window, and she wasn't really convinced the guy was liking it a whole lot, but he was looking back in. But I was thinking the carabao really didn't look like he was enjoying it, staring back at her. But that's the kind of stuff you see along the road, you know, and you've seen those pictures before. All right, so once we're finished there and visiting all our preachers and seeing how they're going, what can we do to help you out? And there are other people, some of them have other support from other places, and that's fine. But, you know, we feel a responsibility to them to try to help them as best we can. So we go all the way to the north. You can see where the star is. And this is an area we've been going to pretty regularly. And it's the place where we refer to, you know, the Negritos, the little people, the Aboriginal people. That's where the Cagayan Valley is. And so, actually, I think David Mangrubang really looks like a Negrito, doesn't he? I mean, his features are very distinct. And then the other two guys we support, Ali is a Negrito, so is David Mangrubang, but they preach out in other areas. Now, when we arrive there, we arrive at, as it says there, should be an A in there, but Alasatan. And this is where we don't support this guy, but we've been involved with him and his family off and on over the years, Dante Johnson. But that's their building right next to their house. And we had a pretty substantial crowd there, I don't know, 80, 90 people who were there when we first arrived. We're getting into the early parts of the fourth week of our trip. And there we are. There's a lot of people there that were visitors from other communities that we knew, wanted to come by and say hello. And so we were there. And so Carrie and I taught the whole day there. Then we went over to another place in Ayapao. And Judy had some photos here. These people are mostly Negritos of that group. And it was a rainy kind of day. The thing that was not a particularly spiritual issue, but all of a sudden Carrie decided to stand up right in the middle of services, and he hit right into the beam.
A memorable evening.
It was memorable, and I didn't tell him I was sorry for him or anything. I just said it just sounded like a bomb going off. I mean, it did. It sounded like that. I mean, it was just, it was pretty fun. Because it's hard enough for me to not bump my head all the time, with the Philippines folks, because they're all a little bit smaller. But for Carrie, some of these guys are over 6 feet. I mean, they're just a walking disaster area if they're not careful. And so he was just sitting in his seat, and he stood up, not thinking there was going to be something sitting that low. Kaboom! All right, so a nice little group of people there to hear us, and now this is the other good infrastructure. Go ahead and explain that, Carrie, on the left.
On the pole, I'm not sure. That's their internet service to that community, and I don't know how they get any service. Period.
Yeah, it's just all kind of tacked up there. And then what we have over here is a coconut, and
they just stick a straw in it, and that was our water bottle.
Yeah, they whack it up, and then you drink it. Judy drinks the coconut often. Have you, Carrie?
I don't know.
No, I have. Yeah, I don't drink it either. Yeah. This is the place of another small group of people, and this is, they're in the kind of a process of improving it. A big pile of dirt and gravel there. I don't know, what they're planning on doing, but we met there underneath. This was after they'd taken away all the chairs, and we met with them. And again, they're a part of this northern Cagayan area. Here we have some baptisms. One of the brothers over there taking pictures. Now, you can see that's rice, I think, out there. And it wasn't real hot. And I'll tell you, there were a few people standing in that water, because they're saying, okay, just stand there. We have to get your pictures now, after they've been baptized. And they're sitting there. Yeah. And so there they were. And, of course, that water didn't look too clean, but, that doesn't matter. It's enough to, get you in touch with the blood of Christ, so that's what's important. Okay, now we're in Cuingan, which is the home of the Negritos, and we've been there, many times with them, and this is their meeting place. So since we've been going there, this is about their third meeting place. Destroyed by, they had a really nice, fancy kind of Filipino-looking building, and then that just got kaboomed, destroyed. And so now they're a little bit more sturdy, and this is starting to last them for a while. So there we are. You can see it's a fairly large building. Whenever we go there, we almost always have around 200 people there, and they really love us to come and really appreciate. They just like the ideas. I've told you before. They just appreciate the fact that somebody loves them and really cares for them, and it just means, I think, a whole lot more than it does to us at times, but nevertheless, it does mean a lot to them, and I've talked about this. This outside, there are some boys there doing what little boys do, after services, kicking and throwing things around and having a good old time. I'm not really sure. Those look like, were those coconuts or were those melons?
Those are coconuts.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, so they're out there and they're just, I mean, they're round, so, I mean, nobody's eaten them yet, so let's have some fun. All right, this is where, Judy got her chance to show her frontier work. We were going up into the hills, in a place called Pureg, and it's where the Ali Sevilla, it's where he lives. And we couldn't get up the hill. It was too muddy. And so we had guys coming down and picking us up in the tricycles. And actually, I think Judy came up pretty well on this. I don't think you got too muddy or anything like that, did you? You did pretty well. But a few times we had to get out and we had to push the tricycle and, but, we probably could have walked up there, but they always think we need to be driven around if we can. So she was returning from going up the road about a half a mile, which is where they were meeting, and that's where we were meeting up there. They are right next to a school, and they're also then putting together some other kind of structure just 50 meters or so away. But as you can see, pretty good sized group there, and there's Carrie with the gang, and it's right next to, I don't know, I think Carrie I think he took out my picture of the guys playing basketball. I think he kind of felt that maybe somebody might think we were playing around.
I forget. I didn't take it out. I forgot to put it in.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Anyway, so we'd taken the photo right there, and that was right there on the road as we were leaving. Wasn't that after we taught?
Yeah.
Yeah, up there, yeah. And there were some boys playing basketball there on the street. But you can see these are all guys that you can see the guys who are from the more well-fed Filipino groups. They're on that side, and they're a little bit taller than the little guys on that side. And those guys are all Negritos, and so most of them aren't a whole lot more than 5 feet tall. But all these guys over here are 5, 7, 8. Anyway, we're all up there waiting for our ride, and then we're down now traveling, going to the next place, and this was. Go ahead and give the commentary, Carrie.
We saw these, I guess, parades, and then they always have evidently for the wealthy citizens. They always include. They got a band, and then they'll pull the hearse with the horse that's all decked out.
Yeah, this is for a funeral, obviously.
And then the hearse with the casket in it. And I'm glad I don't have to polish that.
Yeah. Well, they said, only the rich people have the parades. I mean, with the horses, and generally speaking, if you're going through any town on Saturday, there's usually at least 2 or 3 funerals, and generally speaking, people are just parading, behind the group, walking, and they're carrying the casket. But here, that's probably the fanciest one I've ever seen. Oh, she was a prominent female. I got it. Okay. So anyway, this it's not unusual to see these on Saturdays. So we're going through. Tell me again where we are, Carrie, on this one.
That's going up to what they call the Ilocos Norte, and it shows their Spanish heritage. They had 400 years of Spanish rule.
Right.
And so there's a lot of Spanish influence and language, names, construction, everything still shows a lot of.
So do you know if that's a structure that's still in use, or is that just?
Yes, that's still in use. It's
Okay.
500 years old.
Okay. All right. This is a fairly new guy that we're supporting in Tanap, Burgos. His name's Roger Borja. Extremely talented guy. And we're over visiting, see, way up over there in the northwestern corner. And that's where he does a lot of his traveling around and teaching. We now support him, I think $150 a month. And here's what's up there. You've seen these pictures before when you're traveling along the north coast. It looks like the ocean just about everywhere, although the surf isn't as big. But it does get bigger than what it is right now. But this was going from the Cagayan Valley over to the Ilocos Norte, as you see. Okay. All right, so they said, it's always kind of mysterious, what we're going to be doing, because by this time we're just kind of, okay, where do you want us to go? And so, oh, don't worry, we're going to go by someone's house. We'll probably have a little snack and maybe a little Bible study. Okay. That sounds good. We've been teaching pretty much nonstop. And so we show up and here we go. This is what it was all about. We had about 80 people there waiting for us. And so Carrie and I, did our thing, got up and taught, and really nice family there. We had never met them before, and so the crowd was kind of more off that way, but it's not that important, that we have a lot of people, but it does show their level of interest, when we do come, because, they want to have the opportunity to share in what it is we're doing. There's another baptism. As Judy says, they never seem to find a whole lot of water for baptisms, and I think it's because most of them don't swim very well, and so they don't like to get into very deep water. And of course, we got the carabao over there on the other side, and I don't know what he's been doing, but I don't know if I'd wanted to be in that water. But anyway, so there's three of them. This guy in the white shirt is the one who's going to be baptizing them. And then we go to this other place, which it's kind of a what do you call it when you're moving water around?
Canal.
A canal, yeah, but it was something else. I was trying to think of something more agricultural. If anybody thinks of it, let me know. Anyway, we're going to have baptism there. What happened, this wasn't very deep, and so I don't think, we didn't get a chance to fix it, but the guy goes, okay, here's what we got to do. Start piling up rocks down there on the other end, where the water's, flowing through. And so they got it up to where it was deep enough for us to baptize them. And again, what's always amazing is, nobody thinks it's a big deal. It's like, okay, get the rocks. And that was very clear water, too, by the way. And I don't know that I've ever seen anyone over there baptized in clear water, but that was very clear. Running water was very clear and very pretty. And now, the baptisms that we saw, we generally see people, who are young, 11, 12-year-olds, that kind of thing. But we had several who were like over 70 who were baptized. And so that's always exciting when there was a lady who had been attending, I'll just get ahead of this because it's just a few slides down there, but she would just show up down at the building, and the guy was preaching there, he didn't quite know what to make of her. He could understand her, but he knew she was, had grown up as a Roman Catholic, and her family didn't want her going down there meeting with them. And she was 83 years old. And she decided the day we were there that she was going to be baptized. So it was very, very exciting. But as the guy who preached there, he says, I knew something was good about this lady. She beat me to the building every day. And so anyway. Okay, here's the place where Carrie preached. Tell them about the couple there in the front, Carrie.
He was the original member of the congregation there, and
And that's his wife, too, by the way.
That's his wife, and they're both in their mid-90s, which was exceptionally old for Filipino.
Yeah, so they're in their mid-90s and still going. Not fast, by the way,
No.
but they're still going, and beloved by the people there. This was where we taught in a place. In this area we went to, there were probably like 5 or 6 churches. And again, most everybody walks to church. And so, the churches could easily be within like a half a mile of one another. And so there were a number of them there. And so I was there teaching there in that area. And here's some girls doing the Lord's Supper. Maybe they can, as we try to, move back to the way we used to do it. Maybe you get them to come over and have a little in-service or something like that, because they're still making their bread and preparing the communion grape juice. This is called the Highway Church. As Carrie says, I said, because I didn't go to this place. I go, well, why do you call it that? Well, it's next to the highway. This is the brilliance we need. And as Carrie said, it looks small, but it's a little bit bigger, really, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
It's deceptive, the front of it.
Yeah. This was another place where, again, you can see the chairs. I know they're expecting to see those chairs in heaven. I just have a feeling,
Yeah.
you just can't have things going, unless you got those blue chairs. Anyway, we're kind of in between, and the guy who teaches there, who was carrying us around, is a really nice young guy. He's a security guard, and I think he may be supported by Miraloma Church down in Southern California, but we're not helping him. But he's a good guy. This was kind of fun. This is a beautiful pool, but they had baptisms there. Well, can you see like where the guys over there trying to give instructions? Okay, and right below him, do you see? Those are clothes, and this is a place where everybody goes to wash their clothes. And so he was real polite to him. There was this one girl who wanted to be baptized, and he said, we're going to have this baptism, speaking in the local dialect, and he said, would you mind just for a few minutes, letting us step in, because it was the only place you could really walk in safely, at least for them. And so they stepped back, and they were just as happy as they could be that they participated in it, and that's her being baptized. So that's the first time we've really been to that area, isn't it, Carrie, where it doesn't look like much on the map. It's one of these places that doesn't show any towns or anything, and when you get there, you figure out that's not right. There's a lot of people there and a lot of little places. And this is where now we're heading out sort of on the back side of our trip. We have about 1 week to go. And this is in Sinait, Ilocos Sur. So we've gone from Ilocos Norte to Ilocos Sur. So we're moving south. And this is toward the area where our Rolando and Ludi live. Okay, there's the congregation there. Carrie calls that the Bowling Alley Church. It's very long, and
Long and narrow.
Long and narrow, and if you want to sit in the back, you can really get in the back there, because you can barely see him back there. But I have this strange memory about this place, because I will never forget it, because it was when these guys were all standing around there going, Randy, did you hear that Kobe Bryant was killed in a helicopter accident? Of course, and they love basketball over there. Let me tell you that. But, it was it was such a shock. And here these guys are buzzing all around about it, and I still see that view. I know I should be a whole lot more spiritual. But it was just such a shock to hear that. But that's where it happened. This was a place where these people met, numerous visitors from other places, and then this was a congregation that had started kind of neatly the way they did it. It's a garage, and this was another one of those places where we were told, because we were supposed to be on our way out of the area. We're all like good Americans. We're going, okay, now we got to keep moving here, and they go, oh, don't worry, we'll just stop by for a couple of minutes. Well, you know how that works. Wouldn't you mind preaching a lesson? And so it's not on our schedule, but it's on their schedule. And so Carrie and I both preached there. And this is where you can see where I got the special treatment. This group was giving out lays. As you can see that, the yellow. And Judy's got one on as well. Did you wear yours, Carrie?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just checking. Yeah. You didn't leave us all alone out there doing that. Okay, now this is something that the people that we're supporting, this guy right here, his family had a coconut business where they would take the coconut and they would grind up, they would sell the milk, water, and then they would grind it all up, and they did it all, it was like right in the front of their house. So we stayed with them for two days, and all of a sudden at about 5:30 you would hear, and there they were. The daughter is now the one who has the business. She got it from her family, and that's her husband helping her out. But she runs the show there, and apparently it's allowed them to pay for all their children's schooling. So it's always exciting to see when they really do try to take care of themselves. And that's her right there. That's the daughter. Well, I don't know. It doesn't matter. What was her name? Do you remember? Anybody remember? Judy? Okay. Her mother's name was Helen. So, and looked almost like her. So that's pretty close. But that's what she would normally look like. And her parents had done the same thing for years. But they'd get up before the kids would go to school, and they would sell their milk. Well, now we're traveling south, where this is the last part of our trip, and we're there with Rolando and Jeffany and Alex Valaroso, who is a fairly new guy that we've begun supporting, but we're moving down to the place where we're going to fly back to Manila. Jeff, is Rolando's son. He's actually in that picture, it doesn't really do him justice. He's lost a bunch of weight, and really, in a very amazingly self-disciplined way, has lost weight. And Alex has bad heart problems, but he's just as energetic as he can be. If he goes down, he's going to go down working hard. He's just that kind of guy. And so there we are. I think that's at Rolando's. Yeah, there in Vigan City, and we arrived there for Wednesday night. We got there. They have a Wednesday night Bible study. It's the only place I know where they do, because most of them meet at different times during the week. But somebody got to them and said, "You got to have something on Wednesday night," And so that's what they do. And so I'm there teaching, and then Carrie's going to teach, and then this is their little area where they sit and gather and dry clothes. It is the backyard. I've never been convinced. It's more on the side, but anyway, you can see Carrie there, and they're all related to Rolando and Ludi. And most of you who knew Ludi, she was rather beloved when she was here, even though we didn't really connect with them as much as we wanted to. But they're all their children. So we met with them. Fortunately, they pulled their clothing down, so nobody wanted to mess up the photo, with the clothes hanging there. And then we go off to a place called Malingeb, there's two congregations there where the boys take care of them. And this is a place that's really, as far as the look of the building, it really improved it a lot. The property is owned by a widow lady, and she kind of takes care of it, when nobody's there, and has allowed the building to be built on her property. So here we were inside that building. That building has always been hot, and it was hot this time. And as Carrie says, they got the hardest benches in the whole territory. Yeah. And he's right. I mean, they've got hardwood you're sitting on. There's no doubt about that.
But you can still fall asleep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a long story there, isn't it, Carrie? Yeah. Carrie and I just kind of take our turns at falling asleep while the other guy's teaching. I try to go back to my old high school days. How when you kind of leaned over and looked like you were thinking. And I try to pull that on Carrie, but then I'd almost fall off my seat. But we learned to our feelings not be hurt. We figured I think when Scott was there, he said, I've already preached 16 times. And that was just like for the first 7 days we were there. So I don't know how many times we taught after that, but we kind of allowed ourselves the ability to fall asleep. And there's that building there, that's from the outside. And this is where Alex is a preacher. Now, this is the building, I'm sure, this I think happened while we, because we weren't going because of COVID, and that's when that happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened? Go ahead and tell it what happened.
Coming down from, it's a grade coming down from the hilltop, coming in from the right side of that photo.
Yeah.
And it was I think it was a beer truck.
Yeah.
That he didn't make that curve and took out a quarter of that building.
Yeah.
But fortunately, the company that was doing the business, they came in and they rebuilt it for them, no cost.
Yeah. And where they were delivering beer down there, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing really down there. I mean, you'd think thered be a little shop or something like that. But anyway, they replaced it, and it was again, he's one of these guys that's had the heart problems, and we have helped him a lot with his treatment. And
he had a valve replaced.
Yeah, he had a valve replaced in his heart, and anyway, very appreciative, and then that's where he meets. That's what it looked like on the inside, and you can see Judy up there in the corner, and here we are is what we call the team picture. Yeah, when we group up like that every time we go somewhere, and there we are just before we leave. We go to a place called Puro. This was kind of interesting. He and his wife, they're the preachers there, and he's a fisherman. And this is a place. This is a fisherman community, and it's really we just have such a different attitude, toward the ocean and the beach and all that. I mean, to them, there's trash all over the place, and then they have several of these boats, but they've been having problems with the Chinese, kind of bullying them when they get out there. 'Cause that's been going on in the China Sea for a while, and I doubt they could defend themselves pretty well. But they have a number of boats that go out, and they stay out for, I think, a couple of days before they come back and see they're the boats. But again, we were having church. That was right there on the beach, and from there we walked down, and there was somebody was baptized there in that area, and so. That's a congregation that since started because of COVID, they couldn't get somewhere else, and so now they started meeting there on their own, and seems like they're doing pretty well.
I didn't realize when you're baptizing in the ocean, that's a two-person operation.
Yeah.
Because it's salt water, and someone's got to hold the appendages under the water while the other one baptizes them.
Yeah, you're following that because the salt, makes you bounce up, and so you got to. Well, just about almost all the baptisms, somebody's got to at least have responsibility for legs.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, Kes Carey says when it's in the salt, it's a little different. Okay, then we went finally. We're going to quit here, guys. So thanks for being so patient. The church in Basai, which is kind of where Jim Putterbaugh. You've heard me talk about him a lot over the years, and he's still alive, but he can't get out or anything like that. And he's one of those guys Larry mentioned, in his prayer. He just can't function. And so, and I also told you this is the place that had the church building, the meeting place where you had to walk up those steps. And they finally got out of that. And Jim was staying there because his son was able to get him a room to stay, which was a little handier, in a hotel. And so when he couldn't be there anymore anyway, they arranged to be able to meet there. And so it's actually pretty nice, and they had a little spa outside for a baptism and for baptisms, and so it's pretty handy, pretty nice. There we are. We're meeting with a guy that Carrie kind of sometimes funnels support to him through, is it Who is it?
For Porterville.
Yeah, for Porterville. And so we finally had the opportunity to sit down to meet with him and his wife Jenny. And that was kind of our last official event. This guy, Marinduque, you see where it's pointing toward that island there? We've been there before, and Emilio is a guy who goes there every weekend, and we've traveled with him a few times, but we haven't been there, obviously. We were really just trying to reorient ourselves to the post-COVID time, and it was nice to see that things were going. It was much tougher over there in terms of the regulations, and the lack of movement. It was sometimes they would be allowed to go to a store, and they'd say, okay, your neighborhood can go from 2 to 3 p.m. And so we're worrying about wearing masks, and they can't even go anywhere, and they could get in big trouble if they got caught in the wrong group. So anyway, so that's our trip, and there's a lot of other stuff that goes on, and I don't want to make it just that it's some sort of a tour guide through there, but it's important for you to see the people, and to see the people that we interact with, and again, as this trip ended, it was the end of our 5th week, and Judy and I had gone through customs, and you got to get rid of your water, quite a few times, and so it was getting a little bit tense, going through that final time. When we finally got on that plane, I knew they couldn't kick us off, once we were there, and because we were trying to help Philippine Airlines out just a little bit, and they really weren't interested in our help. Anyway, okay, so that's it. So thank you guys. I really appreciate you hanging around, and we went obviously about 10 or 15 minutes more than I hoped, but I think just about every time we've ever done this is what's happened. So, and I've never had any of you come up and complain, and the ones who would leave, so. One big happy family. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.